I wanted to, for our readers who may not be familiar with you, I was going to do my own little intro, right, of you, but then I thought maybe it's better for you to do it and really explain in your own words who is Pattie Gonia and what is her mission.
Oh my gosh, great question. I feel like I never have a good canned answer, so you can pick pieces that maybe work through the
I hope that you never have a canned answer.
I know. I'm like,
right?
I just don't know. Yeah, I feel like honestly, Pattie is this octopus in a way with like lots of different tentacles, and all of them are trying to like kind of like grab at the same things and bring them together. But it feels very, very like that in my head. But yeah, Pattie Gonia is my drag persona. So in drag, my pronouns are she, they. Out of drag, my pronouns are he, they, and my name is Wyn. But Pattie's my drag persona. I consider myself like an environmental lover, environmentalist. I consider myself a community organizer. I don't consider myself an activist because I have a lot of respect for people in the activism world. But I just definitely think of myself as a community organizer. So trying to bring people together around things that they give a fuck about. A lot of my work exists in the outdoor space. And it exists to bring underrepresented people outdoors. Like my theory of change underneath it all is like we tell people all the time to fight for climate. But I think that we forget a very important first step, which is to go outside and connect to climate because we fight for what we love. And I think that right now we have a connection problem in this world. I think that capitalism has really disconnected us from nature. It has really separated human from nature, which is very convenient in order to extract from this world. You got me on my bullshit within the first 3 minutes. So here we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that, a lot of my work is to like recreate symbiotic relationships between humans and nature, especially queer people to nature, because I think that queerness is very natural and is not unnatural. It's found in every ecosystem on every continent on this planet. But yeah, what it looks like practically is doing a lot of different outdoor events where we're getting underrepresented groups into the outdoors for oftentimes the first time, whether that be one-day events that are kind of more group hikes, or different accessibility levels for one-day events, all the way to outdoor drag shows, to fully scholarshiped backpacking courses for queer youth, to helping fund and create this summer camp called Brave Trails. That's a summer camp for LGBTQ youth. And then in the climate space, I feel like I do a lot of really trying to remind people of the joy of solutions rather than the fear of problems. So
there's so much that you just said that I have questions prepared on that I want to get into. Stuff about queerness and climate change and nature and stuff about joy of solutions. But as a reporter, you do know that I have to ask you about you were in the news, and I didn't even plan for this. And I don't know. The wildest headline that I saw today was from the Daily Mail, and it said, North Face risks Bud Light style boycott over Summer of Pride, featuring drag queen Pattie Gonia telling customers to come out in nature as consumers ask, what's this got to do with the outdoors? And I was like,
honestly, like at this point, I'm just like badges of honor, like put it in my obituary,
right?
like right on my gravestone.
So good, right? But it presents actually, it's like, I'm so glad you asked. Thank you, Daily Mail, for asking this prudent question. Like, what does LGBTQ pride and representation have to do with the outdoors and climate change?
What does LGBTQ representation have to do with the outdoors?
That's what they asked.
I mean, I think that like it's a lot of things that like I feel like those sort of people like just don't want to care about or realize the reality of. For example, the outdoors is built on whiteness and white supremacy and colonization and genocide. Like we have the nation's greatest idea of national parks because people were forcibly removed from their land. The biggest genocide, one of the biggest genocides in the world, like just, it happened right here. That's what our country was built on. So when you have an outdoors, when you have a system in the outdoors that is built on that. What you have are a lot of spaces that have access for very privileged people and lack access for people with less privilege. I hear it told to me all the time, well, the outdoors doesn't discriminate. Well, anyone can just get outside. And I'm like, well, that is really convenient for you as a white straight male to say. People have so many barriers, whether that's financial access, whether that is like cultural inclusion in the outdoor spaces. Why would Indigenous people want to spend time in a national park when it's their stolen land to begin with, and when literally the genocide of their people happened there? Why would a Black person want to go outside when they're one of the only people of color? Why would a queer person want to go outside when they don't feel safe, especially people that hold less privilege as queer people? So I think what queerness has to do with the outdoors is everything. People are queer, and people are in the outdoors, and people are nature. So it's literally that. But yeah, I think a lot of my work is just to really bring all underrepresented communities outdoors. Because what we have too is also in capitalistic America, a whole entire outdoor industry that has told us and fed us stories of conquering and being dominating environments rather than being with environments. And it's created these narratives that are full of toxic masculinity, where queer people aren't a part of those stories. And for me, growing up in the Midwest in Nebraska, I like encountered that media from these brands all the time, and I didn't see myself as that. And I was also being told all the time that my queerness is unnatural, it is wrong. And so through that created a disconnection between me and nature, because I didn't think that I was nature. I was wrong. Right. I was this devilish problem. I was sin. So for me, the outdoors are a space where I like reclaim my full belief that I am nothing but natural. But that's a lot of really heady shit. Basically, if I could summarize it down, it's people are homophobic as fuck.
Yeah.
Community can be a very hateful place full of people that are problems. And I'm here to create a better outdoor future for everyone, especially those with less privilege.
I think it's such a good point too about the corporate sort of promoted image of a person that is outside and that belongs outside. And I feel like that is one of the things that probably triggered some of these homophobic people. You know, that because I was doing the horrible thing of doom scrolling through it of the coverage, and there was a lot of like, who would wear heels in nature? You know, why makeup? And it's like that you can't do these things. It's abhorrent to these people. And we've covered a lot of, I also think that this point that you brought up about actually the outdoors and nature, there are significant barriers for non-straight white people to experience it. I'm recalling the 2020 incident with Christian Cooper in Central Park when he was bird watching, and you know, he got the cops called on him by this woman when he asked her to please leash her dog. And that I did a lot of coverage then, because he was just trying to be out in nature and bird, right? And it opened up this whole conversation about the barriers to merely being a Black person that likes to watch birds.
Totally. Yeah, that, and also he is queer as well. So
and look at that.
And look at that. Yeah. I think that was a really beautiful, really poignant example of a lot of underlying issues that exist in the outdoor space. Because oftentimes it's not that visible. It's not caught on camera. But it's a whole culture of acceptance of homophobia and just a lack of diversity. And I feel like a lot of that change is happening. Like, there are unbelievable community organizers, nonprofit leaders in the outdoor space that are fucking so much shit up and are really causing some good trouble. And I believe that on the inside, actually, capitalism in the outdoor industry is kind of honestly doing the most of any sort of a capitalism world, because there are so many queer people and women, especially in marketing in this industry, that are so overtelling the same BS stories and are really starting to tell real stories. And that feels like a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Again, always trying to highlight like the action that is happening, because while there are problems, there are solutions. But I feel like, yeah, it's just a really, really interesting world where, I mean, you want to know why like I or why any other queer person doesn't feel safe outdoors. I mean, look at the comment section. And it's like, yes, these are keyboard warriors, but these are also real people that we share the trails with. And these are real people where in a city, there are structures to keep people safer. On the trail, you might be encountering a person out there and there's no one else around you. So I think a lot about, yeah, like my privilege doing drag of being able to wipe off my makeup at the end of the day, but a overt, really, like it's supposed to be in your face. It's supposed to make you feel something. And for a lot of those people, it makes them feel very uncomfortable, but it's supposed to be so overt to really show that like anyone can exist in any form, including me in drag and heels, because I love nature. And I guarantee you I could like definitely beat some dude who called me a faggot in the comment section up a trail in high heels, but I'm not going to let my toxic masculinity flare up that much other than just saying that. So
Well, I think that's a really good actually segue into one of the questions that I had that I think is like, I don't know, I wanted to talk about like the difficulty of being an environmental organizer and having these beliefs about preserving the environment and nature and outdoors while partnering with corporations like North Face. You know, like we know that consumerism and greenwashing are such driving forces of climate change. And I remember one of my favorite posts of yours was when Shine reached out to you.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but they were like, would you collaborate with us?
Yeah.
Like, hell no, you cause more pollution than any other fashion brands in the planet. And like, yeah, of course, North Face is not Shein by any means, but they're owned by a larger corporation, the F Corporation. They have other clothing brands. So like, how do you choose which brands that you collaborate with, and how do you balance being an environmental and climate organizer with the need to be seen and frankly the need to make money?
Yeah, totally. So just so you know, I would love to talk to you about this, and I think you have such a unique perspective because you understand how layered this shit is. And so like I really like just know that I would love to do like a little bit of back and forth on this, but this is something that I think about every single day of my life, like every single day of my life, because just like you said, at the end of the day, who is going to fund your work and how? And there are definitely financial models I could do where my community would need to pay a fee to like go to an event with me, or pay to access content, or pay to learn. But if I want to provide as much barrier-free access to me and to the community spaces I make, well, where are the funds going to come from? I tried to have them come from the nonprofit space. They can't even make enough money to keep their own doors open because you know what? Nonprofit industrial complex, capitalism. I've tried thinking about other less than likely sustainable models like Patreon, XYZ. It's not enough to fund a team on the back end to do what I do. It's not.
Well, I know that completely because I exist on a reader funded model. I'm honestly, to be honest with you, like it's struggling, right? Like it is able to hire a person, and that's crazy. But to really operate the publication that I need to operate, I need more people. And so even I've been struggling with this. Like obviously I cannot expect regular people to fund the operation that I need. So I've been considering grant foundation money, like, and this will be my first time my readers are hearing about this, but I completely understand.
It's such an intersection. And I think that like, it's really easy for me to say the cliche things, right? Like there's no ethical consumption, but also like kind of ethical creativity under capitalism in a way. Like I love my anarchist artist friends. I love them so much, but I'm after like broad stroke community impact. And I think they're making really, really great impact on local levels, but I want to reach people and do it in different ways. But so I think a lot about partnering with corporations and, I mean, it's really interesting. Like two of my biggest funders are the North Face and Tazo. And Tazo used to be owned by Unilever. And it's really interesting because Tazo as a brand is doing unbelievable shit to actually do it right and like do it fully right. So much so that like I didn't partner with them for a year and a half until I saw so many boxes ticked on the back end of like, show me your supply chain, like literally show me it. And with North Face too, it's really interesting because my partnership with them doesn't promote a single jacket or item of clothing to sell. My partnership with them is in community impact, and is honestly through my partnership allows me to basically do a lot of very essentially front-facing, almost like corporate responsibility. How do I put this? Basically, like through a partnership with them, I can help direct a lot more funds to other nonprofits that I'm connected with. And we get to champion that as our partnership. And I'm like, I can be there for that. Like I'll exist at that intersection. Like if they want to give money to other nonprofits that are doing amazing things and my nonprofit and also pay me to talk about that, sure. Great.
Well, I love the point that you made about your ad, your partnership is not promoting a certain product, which is so interesting. It's like something that I cover a lot is how oil and gas ads, they're not trying to sell you oil and gas. They're trying to sell you on a concept that like oil and gas is good. And this is sort of like the exact opposite end of that, where it's like not trying to sell you a product, trying to convince you that this concept, we all belong outdoors, is good.
Well, you're very kind, but let's also talk about how it's the same. You know what I mean? Like, I think in a lot of ways, it's like, I'm not critical of my work. I'm like, I want to do an event series for queer people. North Face wants to fund it. Through that funding, I'm able to not only like hire myself, but also 20 staff members who are all BIPOC, femme people, or queer people on the back end. I get to provide opportunity, and I get to make space for hundreds of queer people to get outside for the first time. And you know, I can either choose to do that or I can choose to not do that, but that only happens via like a mega sponsorship. And so it's like, there is a little bit of biting the bullet. I think that like, for me, I'm often thinking about, okay, like, you know, again, this isn't like at this event, we're not like promoting a jacket. We're not promoting XYZ. That like literally North Face is a very back end force that's very letting us do our thing. And so I really appreciate partners like that. And I think that like, again, what people don't realize on like the front end oftentimes is I'm working with incredible, and especially in the North Face partnership, female people and queer people on the back end who are truly trying to change the shit from the inside out. And I really think are making slow progress on the inside. But I think what it looks like are creating relationships, right? Because nature knows that if there are no connections, if there are no relationships, like an ecosystem dies. And there's a lot of capitalism that I think needs to burn to the ground. What I also think we learned from nature is if you have a giant wildfire, like it ruins an ecosystem, but if we have prescribed burning, it burns part of the ecosystem in order to form new growth. And I'm a believer in like that indigenous knowledge that like prescribed burning is good and giant ass wildfires are bad. And so I'm trying to almost like grow as I burn. Does that make sense? So like I am holding
good analogy. And have you made it before? Because it's very good.
Yeah. So I want to give credit where credit's due. So my incredible mentor in the climate space, Jose Gonzalez, that's like hit a lot of his ideology, which is rooted in indigenous knowledge of just kind of this whole, yeah, we don't need to burn it all down. We need to prescribe burn what no longer serves us in order to make room for new growth. And so that's like the kind of full and accurate quote from him, which I would love for you to include.
I will.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, I think that like, how do I put this? The only way I've seen actual progress be made is just through relationships and through boundaries. And so I have boundaries on my relationships, including with corporations. And like, that's something that I live with. Do I lose street cred in the environmental space? Hell yeah. But also like, do I make a lot of fucking community happen? Yeah. So it's like, you can hate me if you want, but like, I got work to do. And also like, I like legitimately have like a creative family to feed behind the scenes. Like I have a team of people that are doing amazing things and I want to pay them well. So
you never make everyone happy. I realized that myself.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It sucks because like there is an effect. Like even by not making everyone happy, it's like when people are mad at you or like, you know, shitting on you, it has an effect on you. And I also don't want to leave this conversation about this partnership without asking you, like, how has this this backlash, has it been affecting you? Are you okay? Like, I'm sure you knew that at some level this was going to happen, giving everything that's all this like oppressive shit that's been going on. But like, yeah, are you okay?
Yeah, thank you for asking if I'm okay. The answer is never, but also like we get by with a little help from our friends. Like I have an incredibly strong community in my real life, and I very much, while like that world affects me, I definitely have like my world in person, with full of like incredible relationships and my cats who love me, and I can very much mentally disassociate. That's a plus of queerness, as I've learned how to disassociate from the age of 0. But yeah, I think that like for me, like how it's feeling is a few things. One, you can call me a stupid optimist. You can call me an idiot, but I think that if I could really go on a hike with any one of the people that are shitting on me online, we could end in a place with a lot more respect for each other than we began with. And I think, again, I guess I'll share my honest feelings because I feel like you will get this. And I feel like I don't share these sort of things in interviews because people don't get it. But how I very much feel is I'm not going to engage in this fighting laterally because we need to be fighting vertically. And I think right now, under capitalism, people with wealth very much know if you divide and conquer, you can always keep oppressive systems alive. And so right now, the culture war that these people can keep us under is over abortion and over guns and over queer issues and trans rights and drag. And so right now, these are the hot button issues. So the more that I engage here, and literally laterally we oppress each other, the less we can work together to really fight the oppressive powers that are killing this world. And so I just kind of refuse to engage. And I also think that like, if those people could be enlightened to that idea on the far right or on quote unquote the other side, we could get a lot of things done. So that's what I think we really need here, especially like in the environmental space. Like I welcome relationships with Republicans in the environmental space and people who come from forms of different thinking, because I think it needs all of us from different intersections. And I think there are a lot more evil forces that we need to unify against. And that is not me being a pacifist. That is not me being someone who wants to just be like, can we all just get along? I'm like, no, there's some evil to fight in the world, but I think we're being distracted with thinking that each other are evil rather than like fighting the real evil of people who want to keep basically modern day slavery alive through this form of capitalism.
I mean, I'm glad that you shared that with me, because that is exactly my theory of change and of what I should be using my time doing. It's why I started a publication that's only for people that already care about the climate in some form. People will accuse me of preaching to the choir, right? You got to focus on these other people, and I'm like, and convincing people to care. And I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time.
Yes.
Convincing people to care that don't even want to be convinced. They don't want to be convinced. So there are people who just need more information. And so I share a lot of that ideology as well.
And I'm open to critique on that, but I think that like, I think we gain nothing by separating ourselves more from each other. Every ecosystem that works in nature is one that's connected and that realizes that like diversity is the most important thing, including diversity of thought, and that can lead to an ecosystem thriving. Now there's running through that ecosystem, and there's our crazy forces that be, but I don't know. I just think that like, I wish we all could just talk. I wish we could all go on a hike, and then I wish we could fucking tear down capitalism.
Why can't we just tear down capitalism?
Yeah, for real. That's how I feel.
I have one quick question before I get into what I really want to talk to you about also, which is the intersections of just queerness and thinking about some of the biggest environmental problems that we have. But I had a short question, which is just, when you did do that, when you posted that email with the Sheen person, and you're like, you should get a new job somewhere that doesn't destroy the planet, by the way, like, and then in the comments you were like, let's get this girl a new job. Like, did she get a new job?
I never heard back from her. I never heard back from our lovely friend at Sheen. But yeah, I mean, that brings up an interesting point to me, which is that, like, before I started doing work in the climate space, I very much was a believer in the ideology that's shoved down my throat of, like, if you want to do anything in climate, you have to stop everything you're doing and completely change your life and, like, do this thing. And along with believing that idea, I also believe that, like, to do climate was to just, like, have a megaphone in front of your mouth and organize rallies. And I feel like what I'm learning through climate work is that every single climate entity needs a lawyer, needs an accountant, needs a community engagement strategist, needs someone that works in ad PR or in partnerships. And so it's my greatest hope and wish that people take who they are and what they're good at, and they apply it to what they give a fuck about in this world. And I hope that one of those things is climate, but it doesn't even have to be. If that's queer rights, if that's equality in some other way, if that's really helping your community in some other way, just get involved and do that, and do it with a purpose, and do that aligned to who you are and what you do best, because that's the only sustainable force we have. Like, are you familiar with Deepa Iyer's like model of social change? Are you aware of this?
What is it called?
It's so Deepa Iyer. I'll show you this thing. Deepa Iyer. So she has this thing called the social change ecosystem map. Are you the meeting host, or am I? I think I am. You are? Okay, will you allow me to share my screen?
Yes. How do I do that though?
At the bottom of Zoom, it just says share my screen. Or maybe, oh no. Sure, and then it'll have a little button next to share my screen that you'll click. It's like a little arrow, and it'll be like, allow participants.
Multiple participants can share.
Beautiful. Okay, so see all my million tabs open. So I'm obsessed with this map. This map has totally changed how I think about the climate space, and is a lot behind, like, me saying that thing to that person. But I think that, like, in the climate movement, we need those visionaries and those disruptors, and maybe that's kind of more of like what I am, but we also need builders, healers, artists, storytellers, bridge builders, frontline responders, caregivers, and a lot of those people are more behind the scenes. So it's just my hope that, like, people know that doing climate action work actually looks like 1% daily changes in our life to make a huge impact over time. It looks like a sustainable, like, change in force in maybe your career and maybe where and how you live. And it doesn't look like just putting a megaphone behind your mouth or having to put yourself in a super uncomfortable position that you're in a skill you're not good in. Like, use what you're good at. My favorite people at every single climate protest are the people that fucking bring food and good cookies. And I'm like, thank you for being an artist with your food right now. You are so important. Like, hell yes, so
incredible.
Yeah.
So I originally messaged you to this interview back in 2021.
Oh my God.
Because at the time I was feeling like I wanted to write about how being queer myself helped expand my thinking about climate change. And this is actually something that I've never disclosed in the newsletter. But back in 2020 during quarantine, I sort of like, I realized a lot of things about myself. We all did during quarantine. But one of those realizations was of my own queerness. And in coming to grips with that identity, right, there was, first of all, a lot of imposter syndrome, but also almost a sense of loss that accompanied it because of this, like, straight identity that I had had, and of this kind of normie life that I had spent so much time thinking that I was destined to lead. But, like, as time went on, I began to realize that in shifting out of the world that I was in, I got to create my own new way of living. And I realized that all of my queer friends, which, red flag number one, I had like only queer friends. I realized, all of them were doing the same thing, breaking societal molds that they'd been told were unbreakable, to create more loving communities and families and systems of living. And it really has expanded my sense of possibility, which has translated into obviously climate solutions as well. Because if I can see all of this possibility of breaking molds, and I see it, right, then I have to believe that applies to everything and to climate solutions. So I wanted to know if you had any similar experiences or realizations, and like, has your own queer identity expanded your thinking about
climate? Totally. First of all, like, seriously, congrats on like identifying an element of your life and pursuing it amidst like adversity, or amidst like maybe just feels around it. Yeah, I know you're not looking for me to do this right now, but like, I just hope you know that there is definitely space for you in the queer community, because there is. And I am after a definition of queerness that is so broad, but also I feel like so true to this world, which is not about like who people have sex with or who people are attracted to, but is way more about the way that we think about this world. And that sounds like what you're talking about too. And so for me, like, queerness, as like I define it in my head, how do I put this, is about rejecting systems that like separate and harm us, and embracing systems and ways of thinking that can bring us together and can create like symbiotic relationships in this world and with each other. And I think queerness to me is about like adapting and surviving amidst adverse conditions. And I think we see this everywhere in nature. Like, when I see a tree like bend this way and then bend that way, and then get this arm chopped off, and then find some way to like still be living, like, that's queerness to me. I relate a lot to that.
Stumpy? Do you know who Stumpy is? It's the
No.
Stumpy cherry blossom tree in
my
DC.
God.
It's this one cherry blossom tree that looks like it should be dead. It should be just a dead stump, but every year when the cherry blossoms bloom too. And it's the biggest attraction of the cherry blossoms is Stumpy. Because you're like, how is this thing producing flowers?
Oh my gosh, Stumpy, I feel you.
Stumpy is queer.
This is amazing. I need to go do a video with Stumpy and be like, this is queerness.
You have to do it next year, because
yeah, the cherry, yes, next year I'll be there. But yeah, I think that like, yeah, I define queerness in that way. Like, and so for me, like, queerness brings on like a whole different meaning in my life of just like really trying to find ways to survive, because I was planted in toxic soil from the day I was born. And I think that how I am even alive today is really like a miracle and a feat. And I think I feel that way about a lot of queer people in my life. I'm just so proud of them for surviving. Yeah, I see queerness too in just like how ecosystems just like interact and communicate like every day too. Like, okay, this is my weird brain, but I was back home in Nebraska, and I was spending some time on this prairie, this grassland prairie, which is an unbelievable migration corridor for birds. And I was there early in the morning, and I was listening to these birds chirp, and I was like, to me, this is queerness, because to me, and like most all scientists agree, that like these birds are like singing to each other in the morning as a way of basically doing a roll call of like who made it through the night. And I think that like that is like, that's what queer people do with pride all the time. Like, this is
why am I crying?
Yes, because it's queerness, because we are queer. But I think like that is us. Like, while we will get misunderstood for forever of like being too loud or too proud or too much or wearing ridiculous colors. I'm like, the purpose and the reason we do that is to like tell each other, especially like for me, a little younger queer kid in Nebraska who could have been me, that like we exist and we're out here and we're happy and like we're alive.
Wow.
And so that's queerness to me. And like, that's how I see queerness in nature too. It's like not, oh, these birds are gay and having sex together or raising, like, you know, the females are raising their eggs together. They do that for sure, but they also are like doing a roll call with each other. They're checking in with each other. They're in symbiotic relationships with each other. They're communicating, they're existing, they're surviving. So that's queerness to me.
I'm just like imagining. I'm imagining like some homophobe like listening to this and being like, he's saying the birds are gay.
Yeah.
And
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like, I get that. If I can't meet you on this intellectual level, like I totally understand that. But I would offer you another metaphor of like when you feel so alive and you're at your football game and you're a part of this crowd that is like believing in a thing and you're like all rooting for this thing and you like feel connected to the world and to each other and you're like high-fiving a stranger. I'm like, that's beautiful. And that's the same shit I'm talking about, you know? So yeah, I don't know. Fangirls exist everywhere, whether it's football or finches.
Call me a girl.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
And there's so much joy in that. And that is also something that I wanted to talk about because I think the feelings that most of us associate with climate change are really like fear and dread and stress and anger, which is, you know, the whole core of my newsletter is anger, but you know, but you know, I've made a lot of caveats about that where it's like, it has to be compassionate. It has to be from, like, it can't just be like an angry son of a bitch, but like, there is, I've been actually rethinking, like, even having an anger motivated publication because especially after going through so much over the last couple of years, I'm starting to think that joy is far more important, or at least a good driver to drive your anger, right? Because of someone trying to take away joy. I mean, there's clear joy in expressing who you are, but also like being in the world that you're trying to save. And I know that's a big part of your message. Like Ariel, my reporter, she sent me your Earth Day video which we both really loved, where she ended by saying, if you feel dead inside, get the fuck outside. So you can remember why this planet's worth fighting for. How do you view the importance of joy in advocacy, and how do you express it in spite of the kind of often grim reality that we are living through?
Will you repeat that one more time? Because it's a two-part question. I want to make sure I get to both. It's
how do you view the importance of joy in climate advocacy, and how do you express joy in spite of the often very grim reality?
Yeah, how do I express joy? I mean, I think that, you know, there's the obvious if you look at me that like drag is just like this playground where anything is possible. And so I use like drag as a playground where I can imagine a better future, where I can also create demonic characters. Like I have this like death to capitalism drag persona that Pattie is doing that'll be super fun coming up. That's like this, it's like this crazy look. So it's really creating characters that can take a stage in a way and have a voice and say something, all as Pattie. But I think how I like create joy in the climate space is really just all about community and bringing people together. I think that it's so important for humans to feel that way, especially in a world that wants to separate us and make us feel like we can't make an impact and we can't make change. I also think it's really important that those community gatherings are celebrations. Like, you want to talk about one thing that we suck at in the climate community, it's celebrating anything. Like, my dear God, it's so boring and dry.
Crazy because I love partying.
Yes, I'm like
all the time.
partying. Yes, I'm like, dear God, I'm just like, and what an opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that we need to like dance and ignore the planet. It's like dance to acknowledge the planet, right? And yeah, I want more celebrations in the climate space. I think that like joy is it's a sustainable force, right? If we aren't celebrating what we've done and like why we need to do it, well then like what are we doing, right? Or why are we expecting that people would care, you know? So for me, I think that there's a lot of really interesting change theory, even about like looking at an artist that I love, like Billie Eilish, who isn't going to necessarily throw it in your face and be like, do more for fucking climate, but is doing really amazing things like huge sustainability initiatives on her tours, or like she's a very like out and forward like vegan, so is her mom, like. And I love people that are creating really visible platforms and not shoving climate in your face, but being like, this can be a part of your everyday life, you know? I have a lot of complicated feelings about like the capitalism behind an artist as well. But as a human being, I really look up to Billie. And I think that it's really cool to see people who are doing those kind of things. And I think that there's like a lot of power behind that, of kind of just like leading by example with joy too. Like I want my joy to inspire other people's joy. I want people to do joy in their own way, but I just think we need way more of it in the climate space. Cause I'm like, before I started doing drag and realizing that like I could maybe bring something to this space, I was like, this space seems boring and stuffy and full of like very righteous white straight people. And I think that there's an opportunity for that to just be different. And so I'm really thankful for the work that so many other BIPOC queer people do in the climate space to celebrate, to bring diversity into it, for the reason of like, if people don't see their culture even represented in a space, well, they're not going to be a part of it, you know? So for me, it's queer culture, but for them, it's like, if they can't see that represented in their like Hispanic culture or in their indigenous culture, like why the fuck? You know? Yeah. So I think we need a climate future where there's a lot more joy, where there's a lot more partying, where there's a lot more celebrating, because there's a lot to celebrate. And to quote Mary Hegler, it's like, we can be focused on the problems till the end of time, or we can just get stoked and excited about the solutions. So
Love that you love Mary. She's super cool.
yeah, I have yet to meet her, but I love
you guys would get along fantastically. She's
great. What's how I said, hey girl.
I will. I'm gonna text her. I only have one more question on my list. Cool. Good. We're making incredible time.
Yeah.
But it is just about the broader community of drag and social justice. Drag queens, especially drag queens of color, have been at the front lines of social justice activism for literally decades.
Forever. Yeah.
How do you see that leadership, if at all, playing out in climate activism? Beyond yourself, or like, are there any other people that you're kind of following in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think what might surprise readers, and I think might be a cool fact to include, is that like drag was literally created as an art form to protest. So when people are like, oh, an environmental drag queen, that's so crazy, like weird that you would combine those worlds. I'm like, baby, like drag's being used. Drag was literally like, drag queens were at the forefront of like the AIDS crisis and like AIDS organizing. They're at the forefront of queer rights. They're now at the forefront of a lot of like trans right things. I have so much appreciation and love for any person who does drag who is trans. Any person who does drag who is a drag king. I think there needs to be way more of a spotlight on drag kings in this world, and drag kings are secretly like fucking shit up in massive ways. They just don't have a capitalistic show to support them. Cough, cough. But yeah, I think that, yeah, when I really look at like my like drag community or who I look up to, it's rarely those mega voices that you hear about that are like, the household names in drag world. I love those people so much. But for me, it's like, I just did this drag show that was this whole environmental drag show called Save Her in San Francisco. And it was with 9 amazing drag kings, things, queens. and everyone did a number about climate or sustainability, and people's outfits were like rooted in sustainability, and they rewore past outfits or they made new outfits out of trash. And we sold out 2 nights of shows, but also it was just like, that's what I want to see more of in this world. And those performers are my everything. They're doing it oftentimes with like very limited budget, very limited resources, and they are like making everyone's day at a performance. So shout out to the Oakland and Bay Area drag scene. I love them so much. So yeah, though that's like who I like look up to. I don't know. Like I could tell you names, but I don't know if your readers would know these names, but especially there's this drag queen named Vera, who is just such a force for community organizing in the climate space and the queer space, and who is a drag thing / king.
I've actually never heard of drag thing, but it makes total sense to me.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I love it. I love the gender bend of it. I think there's a lot more. I want to take my drag in that direction, but I also love celebrating femininity too. So
no, it's tough. I mean, I struggle with the same thing with my own appearance. I'm like,
for real,
be today.
For real. Oh my gosh.
Do I want to see like explode femininity, or do I want? Yeah.
No, oh my gosh.
Up a bit.
Totally. Yeah, it is so interesting, right? Or even like what we've marked as feminine, but it's like, is it really? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Anyway.
I recently like I don't remember where I heard it, but it was probably on TikTok. Someone just saying like extreme femininity is inherently queer. And because it was a TikTok I'd gotten of like, how can I let people know that I'm gay without shaving the side of my head, and without like butching it up? And someone stitched it, I remember this now, and was like, just femme yourself up even more. Like if that's another option.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Yeah, all the little signals we do, it's so interesting because it's just like, I find that so many pieces of nature do the same, and life is but a giant mating ritual. And I think that like there's so much we see in like the animal and plant and like fungal kingdoms as well that are like so indicative of queerness, and just like, yeah.
I love that. I can't wait to like look for that now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. I mean, even like the color and shape of flowers, that's like literally a plant like presenting its sexual organ so that it can mate in a very queer way by having a bee come along and take its basically flower jizz to another flower to carry on that flower's tree of life. And I'm like, okay, that's gay as fuck. You're interspecies sexual. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
This reminds me of something, actually. This is like completely separate from the interview, but I saw that you had done something on you had done like a look about pansies. And one of my best friends, he manages the orchid collection at the Smithsonian Gardens. And he's putting together you know how World Pride is in DC? Putting together something for World Pride, pansies all over the National Mall, I'm pretty sure. And I think probably organizing some events around that. And I thought like you would be perfect for that. And I think also like this connection would be a very good one to make.
Oh my gosh. Connect me to all the gays you know doing cool things at the intersection, being gay and climate. I want to know everyone.
Okay, well, I have a lot.
Yeah, please. Oh my gosh, for real. Especially like, honestly, like East Coast people, like I'm just way more connected out here on the West Coast. Would love more East Coast connection. So for real, open invitation to email intro, and Jenny can from there.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we're coming up on the end. I should give my partner some time to prepare in here, but this was such a great conversation.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so great to meet you. And like, please stay in touch. And when I'm on the East Coast, so you are based in DC or no?
I'm in DC, yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't have any travel plans to be there right now, but because I know it's just a train ride away, know that we are taking Save Her, that environmental drag show, to House of Yes this year for a 2-show run.
Great.
So come.
Yes. When you guys are at House of Yes, I will absolutely come. I just saw Sasha Velour's show at Le Poisson Rouge a couple days ago.
I am very jealous, and I love Sasha so fucking much. Yeah. Oh my God, she's such a dream. She's amazing.
Nightgowns was
Yeah. It's
honestly.
everything. It's everything. It's literally everything. Yeah. She invited me to be her special guest at her Portland show. And it's weird. It's very rare that I meet a famous person where I end that time being like, I respect you more now. And
Yeah, weird.
yeah, I was like, that's crazy.
Don't meet
They're
your heroes
definitely-
unless it's Sasha Velour.
Yes, for real. Oh my God.